Words do not exist in any languages by Marvin Johnson. Dedication. I dedicate this second book to my dear sister Ophelia Florence Johnson. My dear sister Ophelia was the one who taught me how to see and accept things for what they really are: facts, proof, and evidence. In other words, existence from substance. We are only what we are at the time that we are. A split second later, we are no more. Marvin Johnson quote. Chapter 1. Words do not exist. Perhaps you're laughing already, thinking, how can I state that words don't exist when I'm writing words in my book? After you heard or read my explanation of how and why, you might have a change of mind thought. Words do not exist. My simple explanation for my reasoning is because words do not have, nor are made of any substance such as matter, as we men and women know of substance and matter to be in this known universe. Of course, that would be with using our five senses as well. Our senses are vibrations, as I think everything in the universe is as well. Words were or are formed or invented from our imaginations, the imaginations of men and women. In case you're wondering or didn't know, vibration is substance that produces sound. The reason why I write these words is for communication purposes only. I understand that vibrations create sound and makes things of substance. I communicate with the universe, nature, animals, insects, things of substance, etc., all the time with vibrations, not words. If I tried to communicate with you using only vibrations, you may not comprehend what it is that I'm trying to communicate to you about, nor would you be able to understand what it is that I'm trying to communicate with you in writing this book. Therefore, we, living men and women, use a form of communications that we all used at some point in history and time, which refers or identifies to a particular substance or thing that we want to communicate to each other about, since we interact with each other on this planet. Here's an example. I could hum, scream, yell, make low sounds, high sounds, etc., and you probably wouldn't know what it is that I'm trying to communicate to or with you about. If I hum while giving you an apple at a certain amount of times that I hum giving you the apple, I think you would start to relate to my humming as me giving you an apple. If you are hungry enough, every time you hear me hum, you would expect to receive an apple. Of course, if I yell when trying to give you an apple after a certain amount of times of humming to you, you would probably become confused because you're not used to that sound being referred to in relationship to me giving you an apple. It's similar to training an animal tricks. The animal does not understand the words you speak, or I speak, but they do, however, understand the vibrations or the sounds that we make in reference to the thing or the trick we're trying to teach it. They identify the sounds with the deed. Do animals talk to each other? Some people might think so, but that would not be correct or true, in my opinion. Animals communicate with each other, but not talk to each other, and animals interact with each other, just as other living men and women or species does, with vibrations only. Remember that words don't exist as substance, but vibrations and sounds do. Therefore, vibrations and sounds, we and all other living species can feel and hear because it's substance. When we use words, neither we nor any other living species can hear or feel the words. We can only hear or feel the vibrations. Show an animal some of the words in my book and see if they can feel or hear the words. I would think not. As a matter of fact, the animal probably doesn't even know what the paper is that you're showing it the words on. The animal can, however, smell that paper, but can't smell the words on that paper. Are you beginning to understand what I'm getting at here? Being a musician, performer, and a record producer, Along with loving nature and animals and all other living things, I've learned about vibrations and communications, of which I feel that I've become an expert at. So in simpler terms, words were or are invented from the imagination of living men and women to communicate while interacting with each other. This form of communications has become very dangerous because of the way that some men and women have used it, them, the words, in a diabolical form for beneficial reasons. Think about how people back centuries ago communicated with each other when there were no such things as books, writings, or words. They communicated with each other using pictures and sounds. Those were about the only ways and or evidence that led us to know about history today. In my opinion, I think men and women back then were more in touch with nature and the universe, and definitely reality, more so than we are today, simply because there was only a few, if not just the two ways along with sign language, that they had to communicate with each other. In my opinion, communications was a lot simpler for and or to them at that time because they had no other forms of communications to confuse them about what they really seen, heard, or caused their existence on the planet at the time. I'm guessing that they didn't know that what they ate or drank was called food or water. They only knew from actual experiences that eating and drinking was the reasons those things, food and water, sustained and or kept them alive and or in existence. You might ask how I know that's the way things were back then. In response, I would simply state that that's why I said I'm guessing. But the communications they left is the supported proof in itself. The drawings on the wall, things they built, and evidence we've discovered from remains as science has revealed. Just to name a few. Just as we know from experiences and evidence that the sun, moon, substances above us all in the sky sustains our existence, so too did they have to know that they had to rely on the same substances as well. The sun gave them heat, which helped to grow their food and to keep them warm. And the water helped to make those things of substance, like food, grow the same way they depend on the sun and water today. Chapter 2. Why do I think that words don't exist? Most people know that parrots, cockatoos, parakeets, minor birds, also known as hill mynas, mockingbirds, and the list goes on, can mimic human speech. Most of these birds, if not all, are the only animals aside from humans to have the FOXP2 gene. Forkhead box protein P2, also known as the FOXP2, is a protein that in humans is encoded by the FOXP2 gene. It's located on human chromosome number 7, 7G31. Google more about that information about human genes. There are and were other certain animals such as Kashik, a 22-year-old Asian elephant in Seoul, South Korea Zoo, Beluga whale, Nak at the National Marine Mammal Foundation in San Diego, California, and New England Aquarium in Boston, Massachusetts, a seal named Hoover, who all could mimic human speech. All of the above-mentioned animals communicate with each other, but not in the way that we, living men and women, do with words. They communicate with sounds, but not words, or what we call language. We too communicate with sounds, but we use certain ways that we put the sounds together, as in vowels, sentences, etc., to make what we call words. We are not really using words, though. We are still using sound, vibration, no matter how we rearrange the sounds to fit our needs or benefits. The created imaginations that we call words are still nothing more than vibrations or sounds. In an article I read that a woman named Dr. Irene Pepperberg discovered that the birds she researched actually do have some contextual understanding of the phrases and words they use. She offered supported proof that humans do not hold the monopoly on the complex or semi-complex use of abstract communication. However, Dr. Irene Pepperberg only made the discovery that the birds, or the animals, have some contextual understanding of phrases and words they use. That still doesn't get around the fact that words don't exist because they are from our imaginations. Did she discover if the birds communicated with each other using words as we know of words to be before the birds heard living people using them? I would think not. Did she discover that the birds created words from their imaginations? I would think not. The birds, even though they may have had some interactions with the words, only mimicked what they heard from living people, which in the birds' world was only just vibrations or sounds. Prove me incorrect or wrong by showing or letting me hear any kinds of birds that can have a conversation with each other using living men and women's words. I hope no one is so foolish as to try and put one over like that. Talk about being ignorant and irrational. Just as we do, the birds probably teach and or impose their will on their young with sounds, whistles, or even singing. Who knows? Just my thoughts and opinions. The difference between the birds using sounds and us is that the sounds the birds use are substances that they can't or don't try to change the meaning or idea about because there are no words. On the other hand, we use meanings which each sound or vibration that we call words to fool, misinterpret, and or deceive other living men and women into thinking that the substance have a different meaning than what it really is. One of our so-called words can have 2, 3, 4, or more different meanings. Dr. Pepperberg discovered that the birds actually do have some contextual understanding of the phrases of words they use and that humans do not hold a monopoly on the complex or semi-complex use of the abstract communication. Now, abstract communication is governed more or less by the world of ideas, thoughts, concepts, and forms of systems, etc., as opposed to substance, matter, communication that deals with the 5 senses of men and women that we know of in this known universe. Our 5 senses deal with matter and or substance. Again, I state that Pepperberg only made the discovery that the birds or animals had some contextual understanding of the phrases and words they use. That still doesn't get around the fact that those words don't exist because they are from our imaginations, not the birds' imaginations. My question would be, if Dr. Irene Pepperberg discovered that the birds she researched who actually did have some contextual understanding of the phrases and words they use, why didn't she also discover that the birds could think of words from their own imaginations? So much for her theory about birds understanding words that birds can't think of with their own imaginations. Gets right back to the birds mimicking. Sure, maybe the birds could associate sounds that we call words with food or water or some kind of treat or reward. Did the birds really understand the meanings of the words, though? I would think not. It's more than likely it was from the association of receiving rewards with the sounds. What do you think? How can a bird understand words if the birds can't create words from their imaginations? Sorry, but so much for Dr. Irene Pepperberg's so-called theories and discoveries. Those birds, like any other animals, only associated the vibrations with the rewards or treats. In my opinion, communications had to start back when men and women began to intermingle and learn more of how to utilize things of substance, of which today we call technology, by making communications a little easier and faster to understand amongst each other. But did they really? Did they really make it easier and faster to understand? What I mean by answering that question is, back then, they might have made it more easier and more constructive as we try to do today, if, and here's the kicker, Someone hadn't realized that they could cunningly control and enslave others by using that technology in a beneficial, selfish, and destructive way. The simple answer might be yes. They did make communications a little easier and faster to understand. However, it also made things more confusing as technology, things of substance they use, processed because some idiots and or selfish, spoiled persons or people decided to use that technology for their beneficial, evil, selfish, and destructive reasonings. Here's an example. Most of us have a vague, abstract thought, idea, or notion of what the word love is or means. Who thought of it or created the word from their minds? Whoever it was really makes no difference to me because it's only just that, a word. Something some man or woman thought of or invented from their imaginations. It makes no difference to me because that's their thought and definition or meaning of what they think or perceive the word love to mean, not mine. Why then should their definition or meaning of the word love have to apply to all other living men and women who coexist together? Are you beginning to see the control, the enslavement of one man or woman over another with simple words? Simply by accepting someone else's meaning or definition of words, you give that person your energy and control over you. You in fact make a contract with that person. Should you ask how it can be a contract? My logic for this answer is simple. It's their thought or idea that they invented from their minds. You didn't invent the thought or idea, so it belongs to them. Since you didn't invent it, the word that is, and are using it, you owe them something for using their word, their invention that they thought of and or created. If you create a song from your mind and had it published, put on CDs, records, etc., that song belongs to you because you created it from your mind, invented it from your mind. Nobody else thought of the song but you, and that's why you would copyright and publish the song for your protection of theft and legally is copyright infringement. If someone else wants to use your song as their own, it becomes a problem because they did not invent the song, you did. So would you think that it would be fair for them to collect money, royalties, on something that you invented? I would think not. And you most certainly would probably be upset about them doing so, especially since you could use the money for your own survival and needs. What about them selling your song as a jazz tune when you made it as a pop or R&B song? Now they're not only taking your creation, making money from it, but they now changed your meaning and idea of the song, which was not the way or meaning that you wanted people to understand it to be when you invented the song. There's been people who have killed for less. Beginning to get my point? Who says that the word apple means fruit? Why can't fruit, also known as apple, be called or labeled a stick, bird, dog, wood, whistle, steel, or a tree? Getting my drift here, folks? What if you don't want to accept the physical matter, fruit, also known as apple, to be called an apple, but want to call it a crunch? Would that make your reference to the fruit correct or incorrect, or right or wrong? Who is the living person who created or invented, who made up the word apple anyway? Why do we, all living men and women interacting with each other, have to accept their word as being the identity of the apple? So much for the theory and allegory story about Adam and Eve also. This is where I had and have a problem with people telling me not to use ebonics or slang and to speak proper English. Do you see how a person or people are trying to enslave and control you or our thinking and actions according to their way of thinking for their benefit? Who in the hell are they to tell me about ebonics when they didn't invent the word? Let's say, for example, that I invented the word ebonics. Who the can tell me when, how, or why I cannot or can use my word ebonics that I thought of. So we can communicate with each other, but doesn't mean that we have to accept each other's meaning or definitions, and especially since no man or woman has authority over any other man or woman. Whoever has the biggest game wins. That's it, folks. Ours is the biggest if we would just know who we are. The hell with what or why we are. Just know who you are, and you begin to come out of the darkness into the light. In my opinion, it's very simple too, folks. Being in the darkness is to not have knowledge of self, and being in the light is knowing and having knowledge of who you are. That which is merely just the truth, which is substance and or matter. That's what we're made of and what we are. Now, who are we is a different subject altogether. And that, my friends, is the truth, because everything else is just words or thoughts that don't exist. Words and thoughts are not real living things made of substance or matter. We are. So I rest my case. Now, someone be so foolish as to state otherwise without supported proof or evidence. If you can't provide the supported proof or evidence, don't waste my time or yours in being ignorant. The use of words controlling, enslaving people seem to be what has happened or is happening to our so-called government and people we hired to a position of so-called authority such as police, judges, politicians, etc. The system, if used for constructive purposes, is not really that bad, in my opinion. But some selfish, evil-acting idiots have decided to use words to their advantage to control and enslave others that don't really understand about words, their meanings, and more important, the people knowing themselves. When so-called money becomes involved, that's when people take things serious, though. Don't get me wrong here, folks. I'm not stating that words or the people we hired in authority of positions are all bad or do things for their benefit only. For the most part, in my opinion, like everything I write in this book or speak, majority of living people on this planet are pretty decent as far as interacting with one another. If people used the communications known as words for constructive reasons for the benefit of all living species and things, people and things would be a hell of a lot better. For some odd reasoning, though, some people act in the manner of taking, instead of giving. That may be because the competition that I wrote about in my first book, which would you prefer, dreams or reality? My question is, why do these people have such foul, despicable conduct? Of course, no one has come up with a logical answer yet. So why try to find an answer to something that may be beyond our control, as far as we can perceive it? If something is that mystic, why try to do the impossible? Let's just correct it. The problem, that is, and those people. You might be asking, how should we deal with such people? Well, since they work for us, remember they contracted with us for pay. Fire their asses and hire people who will do the jobs we hired them for and not try to be our bosses. Besides just terminating their asses from our employment, also sue their asses for breach of contract. Now they won't get to use any of our money to get more physically powerful with buying weapons, hired hitmen and women, their employees, to use more force upon us and against us to keep us enslaved and controlled. That's just my thoughts. What do you think? So how do we communicate with words that don't really exist when we need to interact with one another? Let nature take its course. Give and receive. If you take something you don't own, you'll be in trouble with not only nature, but with all living species of people that don't wish to be controlled or enslaved by the few who wish to take. Remember, as stated in my first book, the majority rules, and as I mentioned above, I think for the most part, majority of the living people on this planet are pretty decent as far as interacting with one another. I even think perhaps, from the good nature in me, that even the people that have or are still doing these foul things to others might just not really know they are doing so because they really believe that what they are or have been doing is correct and or morally right. In simpler terms, if they don't or didn't know who the hell we were or are, how can we expect them to know who the hell they are? I really think that truth, substance, matter, made and created is of a good nature, but somewhere along the line, things got out of hand and it needs to be corrected. As I mentioned in my first book, if we don't correct our problems, nature and the universe will, and it won't be a pleasant thing to experience. Ever heard of that old saying, sticks and stones can break my bones, but words can never hurt me? Well, how true that is, because words can hurt us since we're made from substance and matter, and words are not substance. So when nature and the universe starts to make tornadoes, cyclones, hurricanes, earthquakes, fires, and other catastrophes appear, you'll soon find out what can really hurt your substance and matter physically. Chapter 3. Throughout this book, you'll hear me refer to words such as create and invent. I do this purposely because some people seem to believe that the word invent is the same as the word create. That would be incorrect thinking, because those two words are totally different. The two words are not spelled alike. They don't even sound alike. So that in itself, and using logic, should tell you that those are two different words. Keep this in mind as you hear those words throughout this book. If you don't know where you came from, how then can you know where you're going? I say to keep this in mind because you shouldn't let anybody, this includes myself, tell you using words or convince you using words that they perceive, they think of, they invent, and or create, again, there's that word, because you will become enslaved by those people because you're accepting their words and their meanings of what those words are. On to chapter 3, vibrations. Since words are from the imagination and has no substance or physical matter, these thoughts, the words, can exist, but words can be used in a variety of ways which can be constructive or destructive. I bring to your attention again to remember, words are formed from the imagination and has no substance or physical matter. Since vibrations or sounds made from vibrations have substance, pleasure and pain can come from them depending on how they are used. Example, a vibration or sound, hereinafter I'll just refer to as sound, can be so loud that it could cause pain to your ears and even your bodies. Sound can also be so pleasant that it can cause pleasure to your ears or your bodies, such as a nice soothing feeling effect. You can just yell at someone who speaks no English at all, and they'll know something unpleasant has occurred with you that you caused or that they may have caused. Either way, they'll feel threatened, intimidated, or upset and angry that you are yelling at them. All those feelings, substances, were caused using no words. That's because that person don't understand or speak your language and can't perceive the sounds as words because they don't understand the words. They do, however, understand the feelings they are receiving from those vibrations you're using. Even if you yell at that person saying, "I love you," they will not perceive it as love because they don't understand your words, but they feel the substance they are feeling and hearing from the vibrations and sounds that you are making. The words "I love you" is not threatening to them because they don't understand the words. The vibrations and sounds are threatening to them because they feel and hear something unpleasant to themselves or to their nature. This is why, in my opinion, I think that nature and the universe teaches, shows, communicates to us how things should be or feel. The vibrations and sounds are real, not fiction. They exist. Words have no substance and are not real, and therefore they don't exist. If we take the time and use the same scenario, and instead of yelling at the person who don't understand our language, and we wrote the words, "I love you" on a piece of paper and showed it to them, that person would not feel threatened, pleasurable, or anything, probably except confused, because the words have no substance they can feel or even hear. What do you think would happen if we wrote the words, "I hate you" on the paper? That same person would not feel threatened, pleasurable, or anything except probably confused. Are you still with me here, folks? It's really not that hard to decipher once you just start using your own mind and seeing things for what they really are. Facts or fiction. Plain and simple, folks. Chapter 4. Nobody owns anything on this planet that they didn't create. If you have a small grip on what I've explained so far about words, now you should be able to start thinking for yourself and understand a lot better what I'm about to give my opinion to you about when it comes to law, legalese, courts, judges, policemen, policewomen, politicians, property owners, taxes, etc., and even your own parents. In my opinion, since no living man or woman created any other living man or woman, no living man or woman has authority over any other living man or woman. You can only control something that you own or created, which, in my opinion, again, is absolutely nothing on this planet. It would be impossible for you, I, or anyone to create anything from nothing. When I state create, I mean make substance of something. My reasoning for this logic is simply because everything on this planet was here when we got here. So everything we think we are creating was already here. We came from our mother's womb with nothing. By nothing, I mean no clothes, shoes, water, etc., electric, food. Get the picture? So if we are so foolish as to think that we can create something from what was already here, we are doing nothing but fantasizing and being ignorant, cruel, and selfish. Some people may argue that man invented the wheel. Well, my friends, I use the word or term created, not invented, which is a big difference. In my opinion, create is to make something of substance. Invent is to deceive by using imagination and the substance already on this planet. Can a living man or woman make another living man or woman? I would think not. No, better still, hell no. It hasn't been done or proven yet. I had a person ask me how I know that a living man or woman can't create another living man or woman. My answer to them was simple. I don't know, so prove it to me. They had to argue again without using logic by stating, if you don't know, how can you say that it can't be done? I stated to them, because I know that I'm made out of substance, matter, and that means I'm here already. Those are facts, because my five senses prove that I exist as substance and matter. I can 1, hear, 2, see, 3, feel, 4, smell, 5, taste. That's my proof, even without me knowing if a living man or woman can make another living man or woman. Of course, they were very confused and tried to continue some ridiculous argument, but I refused to get into such an illogical debate and or give them my energy or control over me with such nonsense. If they prefer to deal or live in an imaginary world, so be it. Have fun in the Matrix. How could it be possible for a man or a woman to create anything if a man or a woman were created? They didn't create themselves. For the fools in the Matrix, I rest my case. How can you create something when you're created? Where's the logic? Now, a person can invent a robot that looks like a man or woman. A robot is still not a living man or woman, even though it's made out of the same type of substance. A man or woman claim to have invented the so-called wheel. But did they really? Did they create the wood, rubber, iron, steel, plastic, etc. for the wheel they supposedly have invented or created? Again, hell no. They didn't create the material to make the wheel, so they didn't create the wheel. Now, some people might want to argue with my logic and my opinion in stating that we don't own anything that we didn't create on this planet. I'll just refer them back to my first book of how our own parents don't own you or didn't create you, because the sperm and the egg is what created you. The baby, the living substance. Therefore, the parents got together to invent you, the baby, putting you together some kind of a way, and even stating that I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt. However, they did not create you. The sperm and the egg is what created you, the living baby. In other words, the woman may have an egg in her, but she can't create a baby with just an egg. The man may have the sperm in him, but he can't create a baby with just a sperm. If that were possible, there would be no need for a man or woman to get together for their sperm and egg to create a living baby. When the two get together, the man and the woman, the creations inside of them, the egg and the sperm, is what causes the creation of the baby or the living substance. Otherwise, the egg is just an egg and the sperm is just a sperm. So much for that allegory about Saint Mary or the Virgin Mary in the Bible as being the mother of Jesus through divine intervention. Wake up, people, and smell the coffee. See things for what they really are and not what a word or someone else's imagination tells you the vibrations and sounds words mean. The vibrations and sounds are what is real and what really counts. The meaning or definition of words from another person's imagination don't mean a pot of beans to your meaning or definitions of words. Why are their words more important than words you can make up yourself? It could only be because you make their words more important than your own words. You therefore give them your energy and control over you. You have contracted with them. And believe it or not, they have a right to tell you what to do if you contract with them, because they're assuming all the liabilities for the contract, which means you have to follow their rules as protection to or for themselves. Example, you have car insurance. The insurance company tells you they will accept all liability for you getting into a collision accident and pay for the damages you cause. The insurance company also tells you that you have to travel a certain type of way, speed, DWIs, DUIs, wear glasses if you need them, etc., etc., because they want to lessen or diminish the chances of you costing them money. Therefore, if you agree to their contract and or their rules and regulations, you will not have the worries of paying money out of your pocket for any damages you cause to others. They will take care of all that for you for a payment of X amount of dollars each year. Now you can feel comfortable knowing that you can cause other people damages and problems that you won't be responsible or liable in harming that person. The insurance company will be liable. In simple terms, you are paying to do wrong to others without any liability. Ain't that a... Now, are you beginning to see how the so-called law of the land works? Similar to the allegories, stories written in the Bible and other holy books, the so-called holy books. You can be forgiven for your sins. In other words, You can keep doing wrong to others and not be liable for what you do to them, because you can always be forgiven for what harm you do to them. Just like the car insurance, you can keep on causing other people harm and not be liable for the payment to them. Here's something for thought. How many words can you think of that sounds the same but have a different meaning? Then how many words mean the same but are spelt differently? How many words are spelt the same but have different meanings? How many dictionaries can you think of, and why do one or more dictionaries have a different meaning for the same words that's in another dictionary? Are you beginning to see a little clearer, folks, how systems work and control you if you don't comprehend what is being done to you? What has happened and still happening to living people, men and women in our times now, is the simple facts that somehow a system or systems got invented, or as some people want to believe, created from the imaginations of some very cunning, selfish, evil-minded men and women for their benefits, privileges, and controls of others. Some people may want to argue or ask, how are we supposed to communicate with others if we don't use words? Well, my simple reason or response to them would be with a simple question to them. How did men and women communicate with each other before there were things, imaginations, known as words? Since no one really knows the origin of words, they would not have a logical answer for you. They are blindly searching because they can't see things for what they really are. That's why they want you to answer their question. Chapter 4. So-called laws, legalese, courts, codes, ordinances, etc. Let's get into detail about the word own. O-W-N. How about your own parents and parents that think they own you? Which own is supposed to be own? What about bill and statement? What is a bill and what is a statement? If someone gives you a statement, do you comprehend or think of it as you owing them money or something? If they give you a bill, do you comprehend or think of it as something that they are saying to you? A statement is something that is said, and a bill is for something, a debt that is owed. Do you see how people can twist the meanings and definitions around ass backwards for their benefits? Why would you pay a person or people you don't even know money for a statement or a bill they send to you claiming you owe money to them, or some fictitious things such as companies, courts, cities, states, for the usage of gas, water, taxes, or electricity, things they don't own or didn't create? I was recently threatened and hounded and pursued vigorously with threatening letters and notice from something known as a water company. The letters, notices claimed that I had to let them install some kind of meter of theirs in my home for them to keep records of how much water I use every day. After making them aware that I would sue any living man or woman who came to my home to turn off the water services for not accepting their contract, no one came to my property to shut off the services. I wonder why. I started reading the statements, or so-called bills they sent me, more carefully, and I realized after studying the words closely that I was being charged money for the use of water. I almost fell out of my chair when it dawned on me. That's what they had been and still doing to me and others without us even realizing what was being done to us. Is it really their fault that I had been so ignorant and stupid? Here's what's being done to us, folks. Companies like water, electric, gas, etc. are charging us for something they don't even own. Do these companies own the water that was here on this planet before we, living people, arrived? Do these companies own the lakes, oceans, rivers, and seas? Do they own electricity that's here on the planet? Since no living man or woman owns anything on this planet that they didn't create before we, living people, arrived, how in the hell do we owe any living man or woman money for the uses of water, gas, or electricity? Are you waking up here, folks? Do you finally see what's going on here and how it's happening to us, and us not even realizing how it's being done? I realize that I only owe these companies or people who created the companies and whatever money for their service of getting the water, gas, electricity to my home, not for the water, gas, or electricity that was on this planet before we, the living people, arrived. And I'm thankful they made me angry enough to start fighting back, which caused me to read and study more about who I am or was. So I requested them previously after receiving their first threats and harassments of me for money that I just merely wanted to be left alone. I would have probably kept paying the money they had already been stealing from me, but no, they had to get greedy and try to get more money from me. I finally had enough of the intimidations and threats from whomever or whatever, and my fear of all the allegory stories and word games, their meanings, definition of words they taught, tricked me and my family with, became even clearer. The elimination of my fear also made me read, study, and research more about the so-called laws, legalese, courts, codes, ordinances, etc. I discovered something really amazing, my dear readers and friends. I discovered that I do not have to accept their meanings and definition of words. I discovered that I do not have to accept their contracts. I discovered that I do not have to accept their invitations to their places of businesses, companies, buildings, meetings, etc., known as summons from courts and whatever else. Believe it or not, even summons from judges' orders, who of course work for us. All the invitations are nothing more than contract offers. No matter how it's delivered or put forth or stated to you, it's just a contract offer. When I receive any kind of summons or court order, I simply refuse it by writing diagonally across it that I do not accept this offer to contract, and I do not consent to these proceedings. Furthermore, who are these people, these men and women, who say that we owe money to them or some companies or corporations for something they say that we did or didn't do, such as go through a stop sign or was speeding, etc. Who are they? Do they own the planet? Do they own the water and the gas, the electricity? I would think not. So how did they come into all of this authority to tell us what we can or can't do? It's simple, folks. It's called slavery. Some people might want to argue and say, well, you have to have some type of law or some type of organization in order to intermingle with people on this planet. Well, I would think that would make some sort of sense. But why do any person, any man or woman, have to have authority or control over another man or woman that they didn't create? So, the people might argue, well, you have total chaos. And I would simply state that, what proof do they have or evidence that it would be total chaos? People way back long ago didn't have total chaos. It seems and appears to be more chaos and more trouble now with all the so-called laws and accepting the thoughts and ideas of other people now than it did back then. I rest my case. I refused the same contract offer from them when they sent me a supposedly warrant for the arrest of Marvin Johnson, which is not me, the living man. Anything that has your corporation name, that's the capitalized name, does not pertain to you, the living man or woman. Again, that's somebody else's words from their imaginations. It only pertains to that corporation of which you really own. So, I never appear in any court as a capitalized name. Even if you are forced to go to any court, send in an affidavit stating that you are making a special appearance. That way you are attending there as a living man or woman, and always remember that. And remember that no other living man or woman has authority over any other living man or woman that they did not create. Now don't get me wrong, that don't mean that they won't force you, because that's what evil people do. And actually, the evil people are the racist people. It's all about racism, white supremacy. Never been about anything else. I haven't paid for a ticket or going to court or jail for an arrest warrant yet. And that's happened to me more than a few times already. That doesn't mean that it won't happen, so I keep my fingers crossed if I want to be superstitious like other people. Do you comprehend what's happening here? And it's still happening, folks. Someone has turned everything around ass backwards to make us believe the opposite of what really are the facts, the proof, and the evidence. In other words, substance and or matter. This was done and still being done to get our energies to control and enslave us with contracts and word games. Keeping that in mind, what you've discovered so far about words not existing should make you comprehend that so-called laws, legalese, courts, codes, ordinances, etc. don't exist either. Can you also comprehend words such as policeman, policewoman, judges, lawyers, doctors, preachers, teachers, and accountants, etc.? And even your so-called capitalized names don't even exist. Still confused? Well, you might ask yourself, why don't they exist? The answer is simple, folks. They are just what they are, words. They are not substance or matter. Policeman, policewoman, judge, lawyer, doctor, teacher, preacher are all titles, words, another person, thoughts and ideas. But pay close attention to what I'm about to state. Those titles and words are used to recognize people. Therefore, you can fire those people from those jobs. You can sue those living people civilly for their personal money or for their bonds, which is insurance for them, when they breach the contract with you, or criminally if they harm you. By turning everything around ass backwards, they have in fact breached the contracts that they made with us. Here's an example. The living man or woman whom is recognized as a policeman, policewoman, judge, lawyers, public servants, they work for us for pay. Who the hell are they, those people, to order or demand us to pay money to them or to something that don't exist, some company, incorporation, whatever? Money for their meanings or definitions of words, so-called legalese. And who gets all that money we pay in tickets and fines, or rather that they steal from us every day? Who is enjoying the benefits of our labor and all that money we pay in fines every day? More importantly, what crime did we supposedly commit in getting tickets and citations to be liable for paying somebody for the damages? And where is the living people, the person that we were supposed to have caused some harm or damage to, that we got the tickets for in the first place? How is it a criminal nature? Living men and women recognized as policemen and policewomen are supposed to serve and protect us. This includes judges too. And they're supposed to protect us from crime. That's what we pay them for. Why are they collecting money for some organizations, companies, entities that they probably don't even know from us, their bosses? That's a breach of contract, folks, plain and simple. More importantly, where is the injured people, the man or woman that's supposed to be in court claiming that we caused them harm? Are you waking up now? Are you getting to know who you really are and who other men and women are? The only living person that has authority over you is you. Water, gas, and electric companies charge you for their meters that they forcibly install in your homes. After forcefully making you pay for their meters, they then use those same meters you pay for to regulate how much money is owed because of how much water, gas, or electricity you supposedly used. Then they have the gall and the audacity to charge you for the usage of the water, the gas, and electricity that they don't even own. Remember, they didn't create this planet. They didn't create the water, the gas, or electricity. Why do you owe them money for it? If you owe anybody, you owe the person or the thing that created the planet, the water, the gas, and electricity. Some people want to call it God. Some people want to call it Allah, Buddha, whatever name you want to give it. That would be the person or the thing that we should owe for the use of the water, gas, and electricity. Now, that's what I call a master con game. To add insult to injury, they offer you some kind of trumped up, non-existent laws, codes, ordinances they created with words that don't apply to none of us, stating that living people cannot use their own equipment such as pipes, cable lines, wires, etc., to even service their own homes with water, gas, and electricity without permission of some kind, or permits needed, which are contracts. What other living man or woman do we or you need permission from to do anything? The only law there is that you cannot cause harm to another person. End of story, folks. Moreover, where or who did they get permission from? Some people might argue that they get permission from the people. Living folks who has that kind of thinking are really a waste of your precious time for you to even respond to such foolishness. They'll argue that it's what we all voted for. Well, hate to bust your bubbles, folks, but your votes don't count anyway. Have you ever heard of electoral votes? Well, I'll rest my case. It's a waste of your precious time to vote for someone or something that does not apply to you, or that you have any say-so in their business matters whatsoever. If your vote counted, they wouldn't have electoral votes. Electoral votes is what really puts the person in office. So how does your vote count? Just think for a minute, people. Think for yourself, and maybe you'll wake up. All they're doing really is using illusions, just like a magician, and trickery with words to control you, to make it appear like you're involved in something that you're not, to make it appear that your vote counts, and to make it appear that you're somebody. Well, why do you have to prove that you're somebody to them? To them, you're nobody. That's why they use illusions and tricks, trickery with words, to make you think the way they want you to think and act. Chapter 6. So now you want to know what to do. Well, if I told you that, folks, wouldn't you be giving me your energy and control over you? In other words, wouldn't you be asking me for my thoughts, ideas, definitions, that don't exist. That's not to mention contracting with me. The very thing I'm trying to share with you in this book is not to give anybody your energy or enslavement and control over you. You're supposed to use your own thoughts, ideas, and definitions, not another man's or woman's. The answer is simple, though, folks. Just keep reading, researching, and keep looking at things for what they really are and not what they appear to be, and especially not what someone else wants you to perceive them to be. Don't accept anyone's meaning or definition of words. If you can't comprehend what they are saying or what they mean, ask them. Ask them what they mean and their definitions for the words they're speaking to you. I'll guess that you won't like or agree with what they say the words are, and you have a natural right to not accept the contract. In other words, their words, meanings, and definitions. Some people, the way I used to be, a lot of people may think that they know what a person means when they speak words. This could be very fatal, as well as being incorrect, illogical thinking. You cannot know what a person's meanings or definitions of the words that they speak are unless you ask them what those meanings and definitions are. Then and only then will you know what that person means. Before then, all you're doing is assuming, which could be detrimental to you in your thinking, speech, and your actions. And once you find out what their meanings and definition is to their words, you might realize that you don't like their meanings or definitions. And you have a natural right not to accept them, as I stated before. Now, the only thing they can do to you then has to be by force, which now becomes kidnapping, theft, racketeering, embezzlement, etc. All sorts of what is known as torts, criminal liability, civil liability, even in their world. When anybody uses force on you, use some logic though, folks. Remember, anybody can force you to do something you might not want to do if they have the upper hand on you. You can be robbed, kidnapped, raped, beaten, or even killed by force. Those things done by evil people against you can physically hurt you in some form or fashion. So use your logic to get yourself out of those situations until you can get help from a judge, a policeman, or a policewoman who really act like public servants. The bottom line here, folks, is that no other living man or woman, people or persons, can help you get out of your mental state of thinking, except for yourself. You are the only one who can free yourself from slavery, the mental slavery, that is. So by now you might be thinking or asking or saying to yourself, Marv, I just don't know where to start, or I don't understand what to do first and how. Well, have no fear, my friends. I, too, was asleep, ignorant, stupid, poor, etc., and most of all, afraid as hell. To keep you from going through as much pain and suffering as I did is the reason why I wrote this book. Besides being what I consider a good-natured, living man who cares about all living things, including the ignorant, evil, living people who cause harm to others. If you're having trouble comprehending what I'm writing about in this book, the first time you read it again and again, and I guarantee you that at some point in time, it'll hit you like a ton of bricks or a freight train, and you'll probably do like I did and say, what the hell? This is so simple. Why couldn't I get it the first time around? Well, most of the time, my friends, that's because of fear. In my opinion, folks, it's plain and simple. It's nothing but just fear. So now, if you're starting to comprehend, and I like using that word instead of understand. Be careful when you use that word understand yourself. because using that word can get you in a lot of trouble. But if you're starting to comprehend about yourself, words, meanings, and ideas, then you're starting to come out of the darkness into the light. Everything after that will just fall right into place, my friends, because it's all about the same games with just a different twist. Let's do a recap of what to read and study about in hopes of starting to wake yourself and all of your family members, loved ones, and friends up. Words which were the form and are still a form of communications started way back when by who knows, and more importantly, who in the hell cares? Words have created wars, racism, and religion, amongst many other destructive things and situations. A man named Neely Fuller and a woman named Frances Cress Welsing have taught people about 9 areas of activity which consist of words. Economics, number 1. Number 2, education. Number 3, entertainment. Number 4, labor. Number 5, law. Number 6, politics. Number 7, religion. Number 8 is sex. And number 9 is war. These areas of activity have caused an impact from words started centuries ago that has caused destruction on people back then and even now. If you look up the definition of each of those words, you'll find out why words don't really exist. They, the words, are merely just a figment of some living man or woman's imagination because of the selfish way they wish to communicate with others using vibrations and sounds. That's, of course, if they choose to use words in a destructive manner. However, words are still merely just a figment of some living man or woman's imagination, even if they choose to use the words in a constructive manner. Words are only tools. And by the way, those words were not created by Neely Fuller, nor were they created by Frances Cress Welsing. In my opinion, they just use those words to point out the areas of activities of which the words have either constructive or destructive results. So, how do we communicate without words? Okay, don't get me wrong, folks. Since we do and or have to interact with each other on this planet, we have to communicate in some form or kind of manner. We also have to have some kind of order that would be beneficial for all living men and women. To me, that order would be justice. There has to be laws on how everyone should communicate with one another as well. But those laws would have to be fair and just laws for all living things, all men and women. What I mean by that statement is simply this. No one should be allowed to force their type of communications, laws, on anybody else who don't wish to communicate with anybody else. Here's an example. Let's say I want to go to a certain place, but I don't understand the language that most of the people in that certain place speaks or communicates with each other about. What man or woman has the authority to tell me that I'm not allowed to go there because I can't speak the language? Remember, no living man or woman has authority over any other living man or woman, and no living man or woman owns anything on this planet because they didn't create the living man or woman or this planet. Now you're probably thinking, Marv, there might be some kind of trouble or problem somehow without authority of some kind. And what about the legal, illegal immigrants? Well, my response would be this. First and foremost, there's no such thing as an illegal immigrant. What is an immigrant anyway? What is an illegal? You got to give me your definitions and meanings for those two words since you spoke them. Second, I've never stated that we can live together in harmony on this planet without some kind of so-called form of government or that we should have some kind of so-called authority either. If we don't have some so-called authority or some so-called kind of government, people just might be stealing, killing, and doing just about anything they want to do amongst each other. There has to be countless numbers of so-called scientists, scholars, and people of all sorts that claim to know the origin of language. In my opinion, the truth of the matter is that they are all trying to control and or enslave others with their thoughts and ideas. That's not to say that they are doing it for destructive purposes or that they even know that they are doing it at all. However, if they don't know or have evidence and factual proof of who or what the creator is or was of words, or for this planet and man and women, for all that matter, the universe and humans, then how in the hell are they supposed to know about the origin of language? In my opinion, we don't even know who the hell we are. Do animals know that they are animals? Or is it just something that we named or called the animals? During the caveman era, did those people, the men and women, speak English, Spanish, French, or Arabic, Latin, or any kind of language for all that matter that we know of in today's standards? If they did, then I would have to guess that they were the ones who named the dinosaurs. Come on, people. Don't just accept all that bullshit. The thoughts and the ideas, the communications, and the vibrations that we supposedly humans use our imaginations to create or form words and language with from somebody else. That's it, plain and simple, folks. And keep in mind that words don't exist because they have no substance. If we didn't create one damn thing in this universe, how can we know about the origin of any damn thing else? That's including ourselves. I rest my case. When my cats come to me and make what people call a meow sound, I know that they are communicating with me about something of which I have no idea in the least of what it is that they want. I'll get up and follow them as they lead me to their bowl where I leave food for them, or the door where I open it for them to look outside or go out, etc. It's only when they start to eat the food or sit down or look out the door that I realize that maybe what they might have wanted me to do was to open the door or give them food. They didn't have to make 50 different kinds of sounds for me to somehow relate to them. Like people make 50 kind of different definitions and meanings for words. It appears to me that my cats and other animals that I've observed can communicate without a lot of thoughts and ideas, whereas we humans use about 50 different sounds, words, thoughts, and ideas to get just one point across. Now, I would think that the animals are probably more advanced and in touch with nature and the universe than we humans are. They don't have to depend on numerous sounds to get the point across. It appears that they know when there's going to be a storm or rain or a sunny day, all just by communicating with nature and the universe with vibration and sounds. That's correct. I said communication with nature and the universe with vibration and sounds. We, on the other hand, must depend on some damn weatherman's information. Ain't that a bitch? I think at one time, men and women were able to communicate with nature and the universe just as the animals did. But somewhere along the way, our supposedly hierarchies decided to remove our natural instincts from us and replace them with their thoughts and ideas for the purposes of control and enslavement. That's where I think the problem lies with our supposedly so-called government today. As I stated before, I don't think our so-called government or the so-called system is too bad. It's just the destructive ways that some people use it for their benefit that causes a lot of problems. You see, I think even in the animal and insect worlds, there is some form of so-called government or so-called system that allows them to communicate without too much turmoil or problems. Not to say that they don't have their share, but nowhere near as much as we calls upon ourselves. Of course, they have their little wars and killings, such as us, but I think for the most part, unlike humans, it is for their survival, more so than just ruling over everything and every other species. We humans, on the other hand, don't seem to be satisfied with just surviving. It appears that we want to be rulers over everything and all things and other species on this planet. Nature and the universe created enough for everybody to survive on this planet. So why then do you think humans became this way, and when did they become this way? Who knows, and more importantly, who the hell should really care? Most important thing is that we have to fix it, or else our asses will become extinct, just like the dinosaurs, in my opinion. Now, this might be a little bit off the subject here, folks, but you might be asking yourself, hey, Marv, why do you use so much profanity in your book? Well, my reply would be simply this. I used to be, and still consider myself, a comedian. X-rated comedian at that. And when using my dummy or mannequin and performing shows, my show was X-rated. And people seemed to like it because of the feeling and the vibrations they got from it. So that's why I use profanity, because I like the way the vibrations feel and sound. So since words don't exist, words can't cause anybody harm unless that person allow themselves to be upset. So since words can't cause anybody harm and words don't exist, then all I can say is, fuck you. That's a little more humor there, folks. Oh, and by the way, my cats will meow me to death until I figure out what it is that they want. So how do the animals get along interacting with one another? The answer should be simple. Study them. Watch them. See how they choose a hierarchy in their little communities. Study insects, birds, fish, and my favorite is the ants. In my opinion, ants and bees seem to have a form of a so-called government and systems that precedes any others. It seems as though they all know what their jobs are and how to function in their jobs without much problems. Like I wrote in my first book, I think that all living things were created to do work. Why? I haven't the faintest idea, but it sure appears logically to be that way. In the animal and insect worlds, it appears that they have no problem accepting the jobs and or positions that they have to do. With humans, though, it appears that everybody wants to be kings and queens or hierarchies for whatever selfish, beneficial reasons. Maybe we as living men and women are the ones who are the lowest on the totem pole, so to speak, and as uncivilized as it comes. Every other species seems to have a lot more balance in their worlds, along with nature, than us. And to think that some supposedly scientists, scholars, doctors, and PhDs, etc., state that humans are more advanced than every other living species on the planet. What a bunch of crock. Do you comprehend what I'm getting at here, folks? We're supposed to be more advanced, but yet we try to police the whole planet and cause so much destruction and despair. It's ridiculous. It appears that we've thrown nature out of whack and caused so much unbalance in the world. It's mind-boggling. Is the ozone layer really messed up because of us? If so, then I suppose that's more proof of how we're supposed to be so advanced. What do you think? And do you really think that the ozone layer can cause this planet to not survive? I mean, how can we, little men and women, insects, animals, birds, and other living things, species on this planet Earth, plants included. How can we cause the destruction of this planet that we didn't create when we're using the substances from this planet to survive? Many people think that the ozone layer is going to cause the end of the world and all of this and the other. What, man, you're talking about something really stupid. I mean, people not thinking. This Earth, this planet, has been around for billions of years. It's done survived all kind of nuclear and asteroid attacks and everything else, and it's still here. What makes some little man with his little mind think that he can cause this planet to disappear? Man, to sum it all up, folks, I'll just repeat a phrase that I heard from a very great actor named Mr. Morgan Freeman in a movie entitled Shawshank Redemption. You get busy living or get busy dying. I think I know what the hell I'm going to do. Chapter 7. Words used with religion. It's amazing how so many men and women know what a supposedly perfect God wants or says with words that don't exist, written by those so-called religious people. I stopped believing in God because it just didn't make any sense to me anymore. And my father was a preacher minister from the time he was 22 years old. He transformed from this life form when he was around 87, 89. In my father's last statements, Theodore Nicholas Johnson, to me and my dearest sister Ophelia's teachings, it was those things that raised me up from the dead enslaved mind, that is, that taught me about life, truth, and reality. Here's something I'll share with you about the Big Bang Theory from scientists. Religions such as Islam, Jehovah, Buddha, Christian, the list goes on, and the Bible in particular, are full of horrific acts deemed necessary by God. All religions, for that matter, are full of horrific acts by their so-called God or deity. For example, the Great Flood, the killing of women and children on a mass scale, hurricanes, earthquakes, tornadoes, phantoms all over the planet. The list goes on and on. In the holy books, if you can throw your sins, all your bad things you do, onto somebody else or God who will forgive you, that means you can keep doing bad things over and over again. This don't make sense to me. It's not logical. What a bunch of crap. You can keep sinning as long as your God or deity or the person will forgive you. You can keep doing bad things to people. You think about it, folks, because I can't figure it out. Now, I know a lot of folks might not like my thoughts and ideas about religion, but it is what it is, the truth, reality, substance. If there's one man or woman that can rebut what a man named Mr. Christopher Hitchens stated, and this man was labeled as an atheist, somebody who doesn't believe in God. Folks will argue with you about that. They argue with each other and prove that it's a God. Well, you prove that there ain't no God. Person asked me, what do you think, Mar? I said, I don't think or believe one way or the other because I don't know. I don't believe and I don't disbelieve because I don't know. Just that simple. And I think if they were honest, they would probably feel and think the same way too, because who knows? If they knew, they would have the proof. Either side, the ones that believe or don't believe. But Christopher Hitchens stated, and you can Google his name and for yourself, if it's to be argued that our morality, our ethics can be derived from the supernatural, then name an action taken by a believer or a moral statement uttered by one that could not have been made or uttered by an infidel, a non-believer. And then can you name a wicked action that could have been performed by someone who believed they were on an errand from God? End of quote. So far, nobody has yet to challenge what the man has asked. Chapter 8. How do you know God better than me? How is it that you know what this so-called God, deity or whatever, wants or says more than anyone else? What makes you better than them or me? Why would you not want free will from anybody or anything or any God? We all have free will because we have no choice but to have free will. Think about that. And let me say it again. We all have free will because we have no choice but to have free will. And that even goes for the religious folks that say that their God or deity gave us all free will to make the decisions on if we were going to give up our souls or whatever, or sacrifices for their belief or our belief in the God or the deity. So that means we had free will, even according to them and their books. The most sinister thing about religion, though, is that lurking under it at all times, lurking under religion at all times, in every one of those religious versions, is for this lifetime to come to an end, for this poor world to be over. It's the yearning of secret death wish that's in them all that says, let this be gone. Let's move to the next stage, to the afterlife. Now that's present at all times in every religion, and no living man or woman has been able to repudiate it yet. Some people claim that there are bad things and people that have made a bad name for religion, but religion is the good that people do and not the bad. Well, if you claim one version, you have to accept the other version as well. If it's true that some people do good for religion, then they also have to accept that all the wicked acts that are attributed to religion as well. That's not equalization in the faintest. Once again, the challenge that Christopher Hitchens put up has yet to be challenged from any living man or woman. If it's to be argued that our morality, our ethics can be derived from the supernatural, then name an action, a moral action taken by a believer, or a moral statement uttered by one that could not have been made or uttered by an infidel, a non-believer. Now, if you think about it, how long would you think about it? And then, can you name a wicked action that could have been performed by someone who believed they were on an errand from God? There isn't one living man or woman that's been able to take 10 seconds to think of an example. I don't think that religion is moral or ethical, as Christopher Hitchens once stated. Is it moral that your sins can be forgiven by the punishment of another person? Think about that. Was it moral to kill somebody else for somebody else's sins? That's not logical. Is it even ethical to believe that? Why should somebody else have to die because of some wrong you did? It just don't make sense, folks. I would submit that the various redemption and by human sacrifice is utterly immoral. We're also told that we have to have a share of this human sacrifice, even though it took place long before we were ever born and or created. What sense do that make? That sacrifice that happened back then, that was immoral. Now, we have to have a part of that. And we weren't even around. Where's the logic in that, people? If we had no say in it happening, we weren't consulted about it, and had we been present, we would have been bound to do our very best to stop torture and the public execution of that preacher. I think that most people today would even do the same nowadays. It appears that we were all born, according to these religious practices, to have no say-so in being under a dictatorship which we could not have any hand in choosing, and we didn't put ourselves under the so-called government of those so-called gods. We have even been told that these so-called gods can watch us while we sleep. They can convict us of thought crimes for what we think now, and we can even be convicted and condemned. So if we commit an action that's so-called right, is only to evade punishment. But if we commit an action that's so-called wrong, we are going to be caught up with it. Not just punished in life, but even after we die. Now I ask you, how much sense do that make to you? And why are you telling your children? Just think, you teach your children and others that they must give unconditional love to a deity or a so-called God or some person or something that they must be terrified of at the same time. I'd like to ask what that is like to teach your children that kind of nonsense. From studies and other evidence and proof, it's only been about 250,000 years since Homo sapiens have been on this planet. 250,000 years from studies and evidence, scientific proof. We, human beings, have only been on this planet about 250,000 years. So that means that for 250,000 years, that humans have been here killing, stealing, committing adultery, amongst other sins, dying for things like bad teeth, microorganisms that they didn't even know much about, or the events such as volcanoes, tornadoes, earthquakes. That would have been terrifying to those people. And let's not forget about the turf wars over women, land, property, food, etc. What the first 10,000 years may have been like, man, we can't forget, but I mean, that must have been ridiculous. Well, like Hitchens, I can see why people would worship bears, cows, dogs, and cats, and sometimes other humans. Big mistake, because that's what's happening now. And according to the Christian faith, having watched all of this happen with their arms folded, his arms folded, or their arms folded, for another 248,000 years, and then decide it's time to intervene. Come on, where's the logic in that? And the best way of doing that would be a human sacrificing, where the news would take so long to spread. Then it's penetrated through various parts of the world, and that would mean our redemption. Now, how in the hell would that even be possible to believe, as well as not being decent to believe? Let me ask you that again. How in the hell would that even be possible to believe, as well as not being decent to believe? So you might ask, why is it not possible, Marv? Well, in my opinion, a virgin birth or a resurrection would be more likely than that to happen. Even if it were true, it would have two implications. Those would be that, number one, the designer of planet Earth would have had to be very, very lazy. Number two, unbelievably cruel and or indifferent. This seems to be the case for every argument that's been made for the religious people's illogical thinking. The thing that really is insulting to our intelligence is that religion appears to our meanness. Put another way, you're a clot of blood born from mud, and the God or deity fashioned you out of filth and sin, and you're a wretched creature. But yet the universe was designed with you in mind, and heaven has a plan for you. Anybody in their right thinking mind cannot help but realize that our human species would begin to grow to their fullest potentials if only we'd leave the sinister, childish nonsense like religions alone and or behind us. Moreover, every religion makes us think that we should be disgusted by our own sexuality. Ain't that about nothing? It would be comparable to believing in Mary Poppins, the Tooth Fairy, the Easter Bunny, leprechauns, or even the spaghetti monster, of which you can always eat the spaghetti monster, though, if it's, pissing you off enough. In the holy books and other fictional writings, if you can throw your sins, your bad things, onto somebody else or God who will forgive you, you can keep doing bad things over and over again. I can't reiterate that enough. What kind of logic is that if you use your five senses? And that's the only thing that's reality for living men and women. I think all living men and women have these thoughts and questions in their minds, but are too afraid to ask whoever it is that is teaching them all the words, the things, the fictions, the ideas that is in the best benefit of those men and women who's teaching that junk. Fear is the biggest control over you folks. So if you never get rid of fear, you'll never know who or what you're supposed to be. On the other hand, if you do get rid of the fears and start to ask questions of yourself and other people, no matter what answers come your way, the seed would have been planted, and there's no turning back after you start thinking for yourself, because thinking for yourself is truth and reality. It's substance and vibrations. There's no hokey pokey, no abracadabras, no ghosts, spirits, Mary Poppins, the Tooth Fairy, the Easter Bunny, leprechauns, or a spaghetti monster, or anything mystical or diabolical about it. To sum it all up, folks, as Morgan Freeman stated in the movie Shawshank Redemption, get busy living or get busy dying. And that's damn right. Which would you prefer? Dreams or reality? Chapter 9. This is another recap of what to read and study and research. Number 1. Study nature and watch animals, insects and birds, especially ants and bees. Number 2. Nobody owns anything that is here on this planet. Number 3. The Creator, whoever or whatever that is or whatever you believe in, created all things on this planet, including your asses. A little more humor there, folks. Number 4. Words do not exist. Number 5. Thoughts and ideas do not exist. Number 6. Words, thoughts, meanings, and ideas are from the imagination of living people, including your meanings and ideas. Number 7. You don't owe any other living person money for water, electricity, gas, etc., or anything they cannot show you proof of their ownership of with a bill of sales from the Creator of everything on this planet, whoever or whatever it is you believe in. You only owe payment for the services of getting water, electricity, gas, or whatever to your home. Number 8. You don't own your own home, even if you paid for it in full. You only owe the use of the home, the property, fee simple and absolute, meaning no other living man or woman can collect money from you for the use of it or put any kinds of conditions or restrictions on it without your permission, such as taxes and etc. Number 9. You are property just like your home and land. And guess what? You don't even own yourself. Why? Because remember, you didn't create yourself. Or did we? Who knows? And why should we give a damn who created us? We're already here. Number 10. Insurances and license are contracts with someone or something which gives you permission to cause harm to others and not be liable for it. You are forgiven for all your sins and liabilities in the fictional world of licenses and insurances. And insurances, according to someone else's laws, codes, ordinances, etc., you can pay them and do harm to others, and they will accept all liabilities for your actions, the harm that you do to others. Number 11, license plates, stickers, e-checks, etc., are all forms of contracts. Number 12, any forms of communication between men and women are contracts. Number 13, you have your Creator's permission to travel to wherever you want. Number 14, what about passports? Who in the hell can tell you that you can't travel to other places without permission? Whose permission? Did they create the place, the land where you want to go? Hell no. Use caution and logic, though, folks, when traveling out of a country or anywhere, though. Stupid, ignorant people are dangerous. Even right here in our own country, the so-called United States of America. Number 15, thoughts and ideas are from the imagination of men and women, and don't mean doo-doo squat to someone else who does not accept those thoughts and ideas as their own. Just don't harm another living man or woman. Number 16, here's a big clincher. The IRS known as the Internal Revenue Service, is a third-party debt collection agency. It's not even part of your so-called government. Number 17, you don't owe any other living man or woman money from your wages, salaries, and tips for income tax. No such thing as income taxes exists for your wages, salaries, and tips. Number 18, all lawyers, attorneys have sworn an allegiance to someone or something other than you or I. They are workers for the people, the entities that steals, kidnaps, racketeering, etc. from us every day and cause living people harm. All lawyers and attorneys, they are all smooth talkers and liars. You don't need to hire them because you can speak for yourself or speak for your corporation, which is your capitalized name, given to you by your parents. Also, your first name is also your last name. The last name that you've been thinking is your last name doesn't belong to you. That's a slave name. That's not your last name. Your name is whatever your parents gave you at birth. That's the first name they gave you, and that's the last name they gave you, because that's the only name they gave you. So this last name that appears on your birth certificate or whatever, it was attached there by some people or something or whatever that wants to control you. Therefore, since they attached it on there, they gave you the rights to it and the ownership of it, basically. So that means that you're a beneficiary of that last slave name. And whenever somebody uses it, they owe you money. That means you own it. Your first name that your parents gave you was their present and gift to you that they created or invented from their minds, which in legal terminology would be called copyrighted. Maybe for some might even think it is being patented. And number 19, there are 9 areas of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. All forms of indoctrination, control, and enslavement. However, if used in a constructive manner or ways, they can be helpful. You are already here, folks. You exist. Now kiss yourself. And you know what to tell everybody else to kiss who tries to control you with their thoughts and ideas. Which would you prefer, dreams or reality? Just to be on the safe side, I think I can use both, as long as it's constructive for all people who need help and everyone receives equal justice. And for the people that needs help the most, those are the first people that gets the most constructive help. Let's give justice a chance, whatever we got to lose. Remember the dinosaurs? Like it or not, you can't change nature of the universe. There's no limit to what nature and the universe will allow us to do and manifest physically. If you, we just let nature and the universe take its course. I never thought I would even write a book. Thanks to all of my ancestors and creators, Mother Nature, the universe, and myself, Marvin of the Johnson family, a man who shall not be legally named. A special thanks goes out to Brenda J. Johnson for her contributions to this book. Theodore Nicholas Johnson, son, keep your big eyes open, your big ears open, and your big mouth shut. That would take you a long way in life without too many problems. Ophelia Florence Johnson, little bruh, why do you need to search for yourself? You are already here. You are already here. Thanks, Dad. And thanks, sis. I love you for that. And I'm still here. We are only what we are at the time that we are. And a split second later, we are no more. I think that's right. Split second ago, we've even become older. About the author. Starving Marvin is known for everything from comedy to musical performances. He has traveled throughout the United States performing in about 50 states, 48, however many it is supposed to be. and God only knows how many cities. Starvin' Marvin has appeared on stage and tour with national artists such as the legendary Mr. B.B. King, Al Green, Luther Vandross, the OJs, Red Fox, Millie Jacksons, The Moments, who later became Ray Goodman and Brown, Alton McClain and Destiny, Z.Z. Hill, Rudy Ray Moore, just to name a few of the many artists. Starvin' Marvin has a dummy, or a mannequin, by the name of Willie Leon Talk, who takes no wooden nickels from anybody, but seems to give out more than Marvin can handle. Willie Talk is a sexual soul singer from the old school that causes women of all ages to just melt when they hear his low, sexy voice belting out songs such as 1 in a Million by Larry Graham, Just Be My Lady. Starvin' Marvin was born in Cleveland, Ohio, just shy of Greensville, South Carolina, when his parents relocated to Cleveland. He'll tell anybody he's a country boy at heart. Marvin currently has a CD entitled Funk Me Up, Marv, and a CD that was released in June of 2000 entitled I'm Back, which has gotten airplay in the South on radio station WQVE 105.5 FM from the well-known jocks Jim Stevens and Superman. All the songs on the CD are great party songs. And of course, some have that Willie Leon Talk humor and profanity that their fans have come to know and love. The newer CD entitled Funk Me Up, Marv is R&B, funk, and ballads that'll have you swinging in your seat wherever you are. The ballads are truly great and played and sang with beauty and perfection that I can't explain in words. And the funk is just too funky. Tracks are being started for a re-release of Starvin' Marvin's 1989 smooth jazz hit album, Precious, originally recorded analog, but now being re-recorded totally digital. Starvin' Marvin, the all-around entertainer. Son, keep your big eyes open, your big ears open, and your big mouth shut. That'll take you a long way in life without too many problems. Theodore Nicholas Johnson. Lord, bruh, why do you need to search for yourself? You're already here. Ophia Florence Johnson. Thanks, Dad. Thanks, sis. You're right. I'm already here. And I can get busy living or get busy dying. To all my listeners out there, I know what the hell I'm going to do. What you think you're going to do? Thanks for listening.